All right, let's sew a French seam. So the first thing that we're gonna do is we're gonna put our fabric wrong sides together. I know it's a little backwards, but stay with me here. So we're gonna line up our raw edges, and what we're gonna do is sew a plain seam. If you don't know what a plain seam is, I have a video showing how to sew a plain seam. You can check that out on my channel. But instead of a 5/8 seam allowance, we're going to sew a 1/4 inch. So I'm lining up the raw edge of my fabric with my seam guideline, and I'm back stitching and doing a normal stitch and then back stitching at the end to reinforce our seam. So back stitch, then I sew all the way down, and then back stitch again. All right, there's our plain seam, 1/4 inch seam allowance. I'm gonna cut these loose threads off with my nipping scissors. And now I'm gonna grab some fabric scissors and I'm gonna cut off about 1/8 inch of that raw edge. So halfway between the seam that we made and the raw edge of the fabric. What this does is release some of that bulk because we're basically going to encapsulate that raw edge into a new seam. So we don't want it to be too bulky. But we don't want to snip too close to the seam because we don't want to put holes in our seam. That won't be good. So there we have it. We've cut off 1/8 inch of that fabric. And now we're going to press open that seam allowance with our iron. Use that pointed end of the iron to really get in there. Use your fingers. Try not to burn yourself. And I'm going to press out the back side as well. Now that we have everything pressed out, we're going to put our fabric now front sides together. And we are going to stitch a seam, encapsulating that raw edge like I was talking about. We're going to do a 1/4 inch seam allowance again. Now you can kind of see why cutting that was important. We don't want our raw edge to get caught in our new seam. We want as little raw edge as possible encapsulated in our new seam. So just a plain seam again, back stitch and all, reinforce that seam. There you have it. That is the French seam essentially. And the last thing to do is press that seam to one side with your iron. Now you can see that our raw edge is completely hidden for a finished look. Thanks for watching.